the Specials came and did, I think it was their first show after they got back together down here, which was just phenomenal. People just couldn't believe that this band that had disappeared for 25, 30 years were suddenly back together and were literally within touching distance, which was amazing. And then we've had other bands, Kings of Leon, Queens of the Stone Age.
I mean, didn't Oasis play?
Yeah, well, we started at...
Blur, I heard?
Yeah, we did... the Oasis show was unbelievable. I mean, I think, if I remember right, there was no security here at all because we had no idea how big it was going to be. There was Chris on the front door, me downstairs. I mean, everyone who was anyone, anywhere, had to come in. And then I remember walking up the back stairs to go to the loo, and all these lads from Manchester running down the stairs, and Liam and Noel slapping on backstage pass, and they go, oh, cheers, mate, cheers, mate. There's 2 coaches, a lad from Manchester had just turned up. But it was the most phenomenal night. And spoke to Noel. Noel did a show with Paul Weller here about 9 months later, and he told me that in that little dressing room over the back there, they'd been beaten back 8 times trying to get out of the dressing room to actually play. There were so many people in here. But it's one of those things, if anyone from Authority comes down here, that's it. We're banged to rights. We are completely. But it's also one of those nights that end up eventually going down in history as one of those. And if it hadn't have been as chaotic and as mad as it was, it wouldn't have resonated with everyone the way it does. And I know that if you talk to Noel, he will still tell you that's one of the greatest gigs Oasis ever did. And it was a fantastic gig.
All right, so tell me, how did the bloody punk festival happen in the 100 Club?
My knowledge is that Ron Watts, who my dad had known, came and approached him one day and said, look, I've got these amazing bands that I've been putting on in his pub somewhere up near Watford. He said, and I think it's going to be really big. It's called Punk. And he mentioned the Sex Pistols, the Damned, the Clash, and the Buzzcocks, and just said, I think it'd be a really good idea, Roger. You know me, I've worked with you all this time. I think it'd be a really good idea if we did this in the 100 Club, central London venue. And the rest is history, really. I mean, despite all the history that went on before it and all the amazing stuff that happened before then, those days are probably the most synonymous with the club.
That's funny, because my mind, it's always like the jazz and the blues roots.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
yeah.
Maybe it's because I'm too close to the whole thing.
I don't know, because also the other thing is, you know, you do get people who still think of it as being a jazz club. You get a lot of guys that come down and deliver in glasses, beer, whatever, who say, is this the same place that I saw Toots and the Maytals on a Saturday lunchtime? Yeah. And I'll go, yeah, and they see it as a reggae club.
Mind you, you know what, if we identify punk as kind of more about an attitude and a spirit, not mohawks and safety pins, one could argue that maybe, you know, there were certain aspects of jazz that were definitely punk.
I agree, absolutely, Don. You know, to me, punk is an attitude and it's an ethos which I've seen in reggae artists, I've seen in jazz artists, blues artists, I see it in a lot of metal artists, I see it all over the place, you know. We're still putting on bands that represent punk, in my opinion, in 2016, 2017. So we've had people like Sleaford Mods, we've had Skepta play here. And all these guys, you know, are telling, if you listen to the lyrics, it's a very similar story to the guys that were talking back in 1976. Very, very similar.
I'll tell you another thing I remember about this place is that you were booking reggae acts here when those artists couldn't get a gig anywhere in the UK.
No, reggae was...
It was kind of taboo, you know.
And also, it seemed to be confined to like Blues House on Holloway Road and stuff like that. Yeah. And we got some serious stick off the authorities. They weren't happy about it. It was just, I remember it was my dad saying to me, I think we're going to have to shut them down because the authorities don't like it. They were petrified about a central London venue
playing reggae,
having reggae, which is just...
And I saw some great acts. I mean, Dillinger, Prince Varai, Yellow Man, Mighty Diamonds, Toots, all on this stage. I think it was your father that had the vision of kind of embracing new music and new sounds, and it seems to me that the 100 Club has never really strayed from that ethos. How important do you think it is in breaking new talent?
I think the fact that it genuinely embraces every form of music there is. So we've had everything, literally everything. There's nothing we don't do. And then, you know, and when you get, as I often saw, you know, at the time, you see, you know, black kids coming to punk gigs and you just think, how on earth did that happen? But it was because of people like yourself, you know, going out touring with The Clash, AD going out and touring with Paul Weller and playing black music. And I just think, you know, we all have a great deal of debt for guys like you and Joe Strummer and these people, because who knows where we'd all be without you.
If I was white, I'd blush, mate. Well, you've got to remember that when I met people like Strummers and the Simonons and John Lightons, or Rotten as he was known then, they weren't these massive characters they are now. We were just mates that were kind of bonding over our mutual love of music, and particularly Jamaican music.
Yeah.
And the implications of those bondings or meetings didn't really occur to me till years later, when the historians are telling me, oh, Don, you helped start the punky reggae party, which is kind of true. I mean, people like Strummer and Lydon and Simon, they didn't need me to hip them to reggae. They were already there. The people I hipped to reggae were all the white people that didn't live next door to black people, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of them in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, people from the suburbs, they're the ones I hipped to reggae. But I'm as old as rock and roll. I was born in 1956, so I'm very much of the vinyl generation. I got an analog attitude and grew up on, I kind of grew up on music that helped you to be all you can be. It wasn't just about being a consumer. It was kind of, you know, music as a tool for social change. Yeah. I mean, there's also music for escaping and dancing as well, but people forget that back in those days, music was the only way you could access alternative information. Yeah. You know, so these records, these live shows were vital lifelines. Yeah, you know, I guess now today there's so many different ways of accessing information that maybe not so important, but you know, I get to travel around the world a bit and I see that, you know, young people still believe in music as a gateway to kind of, I don't know, making their lives better. I know it sounds corny, but it worked for me.